He built an empire off style, swagger, and scandal, but nobody expected this. Sean "Diddy" Combs, once a hip-hop heavyweight, media mogul and Forbes cover regular, is now spending his holidays behind bars and eating well while he's at it. According to reports, the same man who once hosted $1 million yacht parties and sipped vintage champagne with royalty is now staring down a steel tray of prison mashed potatoes and Cornish hens. But here's the part that's throwing everyone: Diddy isn't munching on mystery meat or stale loaf. His upcoming prison holiday menu actually sounds shockingly decent. On Thanksgiving, he'll get roasted turkey with stuffing and dessert. For Christmas, baked Cornish hens with gravy and cornbread. And to kick off 2026, options include grilled beef, baked fish, or even tofu lo mein. That's right, lo mein, in Lockup. The news triggered the internet, splitting people down the middle. How does a man convicted on federal charges, someone accused of exploiting others for years, still get to eat like a king, even inside a prison? But here's the real story. This isn't just about prison food. It's about how a music icon, once nearly untouchable, went from billionaire ballrooms to bunk beds, from chart-topping hits to federal indictments, from private jets to a prison jumpsuit. And the truth behind Diddy's fall, it's way deeper, darker, and more twisted than just a menu headline. Because what led to this dark twist in Diddy's empire? The answer starts long before the headlines, long before the prison gates shut behind him. SeanCombs was the definition of the American dream reimagined through a gold-plated lens. Born in Harlem and raised in Mount Vernon, New York, Diddy didn't step onto the scene with money. He built his empire from the ground up. Fresh out of Howard University, a young SeanCombs landed an internship at Uptown Records, and within months, he wasn't just fetching coffee, he was changing the sound of hip-hop from behind the scenes. In 1993, a shakeup at Uptown led to Combs being fired, a moment that would destroy most careers, but only lit a fire under his. That same year, he founded BadBoyRecords and changed everything. His first major signing, the notorious B.I.G. Nearly overnight, Diddy became the architect of an era, a cultural powerhouse embedding slick production, bold branding, and street credibility into every release. By the early 2000s, it wasn't just about music. Diddy was everywhere. He launched Sean John, his own clothing brand, which pulled in over $500 million in annual sales at its peak. He invested in CROC vodka, flipping it into a billion-dollar brand. His name became synonymous with luxury. Mansion parties, runway shows, platinum plaques, presidential campaigns even courted his influence through Vote or Die. He wasn't just a businessman, he was a brand. The designer suits, the diamond watches, the revolving door of A-list celebrity friends, from Jay-Z and J. Lo to Pharrell and Naomi Campbell, painted him as untouchable. Diddy didn't just live large. He defined what large looked like for an entire generation of fans and artists. But here's the thing, fame that massive, it cast shadows. Even at the height of his rise, quiet rumors circled, whispers about fights, abuse, industry manipulation. Lawsuits came and went, parties blurred into headlines, and through it all, Diddy kept dancing through the storm with that same charismatic smirk, while the cracks in his empire quietly spread beneath the floorboards. Because behind the designer suits and CROC deals, not everything was as polished as it seemed. Even at the peak of his powers, there were always shadows lurking behind Diddy's spotlight. The public saw the champagne, the yachts, and the endless all-white parties. But behind the polished image, the accusations were quietly stacking up: lawsuits, altercations, and disturbing rumors that never seemed to stick. Until they did, over the last 2 decades. SeanCombs has been named in over a dozen civil cases tied to everything from unpaid wages to alleged assaults. In 1999, he was caught in the middle of a high-profile nightclub shooting in New York, the same night his then-girlfriend, Jennifer Lopez, was by his side. Though Diddy was acquitted of all criminal charges, that incident ignited the first big question: was the image just a mask? And there were more incidents: bar fights, lawsuits from former employees, reports of behind-the-scenes intimidation. Most were settled, dismissed, or swept under the rug. But the court of public opinion was slowly waking up. Then came Cassie Ventura, Diddy's former protege and partner for nearly a decade. Ended their relationship in 2018. For a while, things stayed quiet, but behind the scenes, that silence was deafening. Rumors began to swirl about the nature of their relationship: control, manipulation, even violence. These weren't just tabloid whispers anymore. Industry insiders began to talk. Blogs speculated. Fans started connecting dots. though no charges were filed. The pattern became harder to ignore. In 2023, a handful of former bad boy artists and associates, including background dancers, managers, and collaborators, started speaking out. Some hinted at explosive encounters. Others flat out accused Diddy of running his empire through fear, but without concrete proof or police involvement. Each new claim was dismissed as bitterness, jealousy, or just noise. For years, Diddy maneuvered around every allegation with the ease of a man used to dodging bullets, both literal and metaphorical. And the public, most of us, looked the other way. We were too busy dancing to the hits, too dazzled by the excess to question where it came from. But those whispers, they didn't go away. They got louder, clearer, and eventually, impossible to ignore. And then, in 2024, the entire dam broke. September 2024, the moment the music stopped. No one was prepared when the news alert hit. Sean Diddy Combs had been arrested in New York City as part of a sprawling multi-agency federal investigation. The charges, disturbing, shocking, and for many, completely unexpected. Federal agents moved in after months, some say years, of quiet surveillance. The Department of Justice, the FBI, and Homeland Security were reportedly involved. Phones were tapped, flights tracked, financial records combed through, and when they made their move, it wasn't just to make headlines. It was because they believed they had enough to take down one of the most powerful figures in hip-hop history. The official charges centered around violations of the Mann Act, a federal law that prohibits transporting individuals across state lines for immoral purposes, often tied to prostitution and exploitation. Diddy was hit with 2 counts tied to these accusations, and whispers of deeper crimes from earlier investigations only escalated the frenzy. Though he was not convicted of more serious charges like racketeering and sex trafficking, the implications sent the industry into full-blown panic mode. Almost overnight, Diddy's brand collapsed. Sponsorship deals disappeared. Revolt TV, the media empire he helped build, started ghosting his name. Projects that were once surefire hits were suddenly frozen in time. Even longtime allies were eerily silent, as if they had gotten the memo to back away fast. The media exploded. Every outlet from TMZ to the New York Times rushed to uncover every thread of the case. Was this the result of years of buried secrets finally rising to the surface? Had the FBI just scratched the surface of something much darker? Or was Diddy being made an example? Social media couldn't keep up. Fans were torn. Many refused to believe the headlines, defending Diddy as a target of character assassination. Others said justice was finally catching up to him. Either way, one thing was clear. The era of Diddy's untouchable image was officially over. But it was the trial that exposed a side of Diddy the world wasn't ready to see. The arrest shook the industry, but the trial, that's when the mask truly began to slip. When court proceedings began in late 2024, the pressure was sky high, not just legally, but culturally. This wasn't just about one man's downfall. It was about years of buried behavior finally coming to light. Every seat in the courtroom was taken. Cameras weren't allowed inside, but the transcripts and testimonies were enough to dominate headlines for weeks. Prosecutors didn't hold back. They presented graphic, detailed accounts from multiple witnesses who described being recruited, manipulated, and transported across state lines, allegedly under the illusion of business opportunities or mentorship, only to find themselves placed in deeply inappropriate, high-pressure situations. One witness recounted how she was flown to Miami under the promise of a modeling gig, only to be coerced into a situation she described as emotionally and physically traumatizing. Allegedly orchestrated at Diddy's private estate. Another detailed a timeline of text messages and financial transactions allegedly tying Diddy directly to questionable entertainment arrangements booked across state lines. The paper trail didn't look good. Private communications, subpoenaed financial records, and unsettling calendar entries created a timeline that prosecutors used to build their Mann Act case, alleging that these were not isolated incidents, but a pattern. Throughout it all, Diddy's legal team fought hard, painting the allegations as character attacks fueled by opportunism. They called the claims fabricated, out of context, and part of a targeted campaign to dismantle a black business mogul. They noted the lack of physical evidence in some claims, the years-long gaps between alleged incidents, and questioned the motives of accusers. And it's true. The jury did acquit Diddy of the most serious charges, including racketeering, conspiracy, and sex trafficking charges that could have carried decades behind bars. But the Mann Act charges did stick. The jury found enough credible testimony and documented evidence to convict him on 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution, leading to a sentence of 50 months in federal prison, a $500,000 fine, and court-ordered supervised release after his time. No murder, no trafficking charge, no flashy courtroom outbursts. But the implications were damning. Paint the situation however you want. The facts were airtight enough to put Diddy in federal prison until nearly 2029, and despite his powerful legal team, the verdict was clear. When the verdict finally landed, it sent shockwaves across the entertainment world because for the first time in his 3-decade reign, Sean Diddy Combs was no longer too big to fall. He was sentenced to 50 months in federal prison, just over 4 years, along with a $500,000 fine and an additional 5 years of supervised release once he walks out. No early release in the first year, no private rehab facility. This was real time, in a real cell, under real federal surveillance. That's so why these charges, and not the bigger ones. It came down to the Mann Act, a century-old federal law originally written to crack down on cross-border exploitation. It's been used in recent years for high-profile cases where prosecutors claim individuals were transported over state or national lines for coercive or illicit purposes. In Diddy's case, the court found he knowingly facilitated and financed interstate travel for the purpose of prostitution, which under the law was more than enough to convict, while the public buzzed about why he wasn't nailed for the more explosive charges like racketeering or trafficking. Legal experts pointed out Mann Act violations are easier to prove. Hard evidence, travel, records, communications, money transfers can build a strong case without relying entirely on emotional testimony or murkier allegations. Still, the impact was immediate, and far-reaching. Diddy's business empire began to crumble under the weight of the sentence. CROC distanced itself quietly, with branding photos and launch events disappearing from their social content. Revolt TV, the media brand Diddy once paraded as a revolutionary voice for hip-hop culture, announced a new leadership board without him. Several artists under his label reportedly asked to be released from contracts, and his once cosmic social circle silent. Meanwhile, public opinion remains bitterly divided. Some called it justice finally served. They pointed to decades of stories, the bravery of survivors, the power imbalance that shielded Diddy for too long. Others questioned whether the truth had really come out, or if this was a carefully trimmed-down conviction to cover something far worse. But regardless of where you stand, there's no denying this. The man who once posed in fur coats on gold thrones is now wearing a government-issued uniform in a concrete cell for the holidays. And just when the public thought it couldn't get weirder, enter the holiday menu. So, how does a man go from hosting $500 a plate dinners in Beverly Hills to eating roasted turkey off a tray in federal prison? Apparently, better than you'd think. According to TMZ, Sean Diddy Combs won't be eating slop this holiday season. While serving time at FCI Fort Fix in New Jersey, he's scheduled to enjoy surprisingly decent holiday meals. We're talking roasted turkey and stuffing on Thanksgiving, Cornish hens, mashed potatoes, and cornbread on Christmas, and even a choice between baked fish, grilled beef, or tofu lo mein on New Year's Day. Yes, lo mein. In prison. And for breakfast, expect bran flakes, skim milk, whole wheat toast, and fruit. It's not exactly 5-star, but it's a lot better than what most people imagine when they think prison food. The headlines practically wrote themselves. People online couldn't believe it. Some accused the system of going soft. Others posted memes mocking the idea that a man convicted of federal crimes was still eating like a king. The comment sections lit up. Wait, why is prison sounding better than my Thanksgiving? Is this real jail or just celebrity timeout? But here's the truth. It's not special treatment, at least, not officially. Federal prisons like FCI Fort Fix are required to provide special holiday menus under inmate rights policies. It's part of rehabilitation and morale, a psychological nudge to keep things stable year-round. Every inmate, not just Diddy, gets the same options. Whether you were a billionaire or a broke first-time offender, the Cornish hen lands on everyone's tray. Still, for someone who once dined in Paris at private roof lounges, the irony bites hard. One day you're cutting deals with billion-dollar liquor brands. The next you're choosing between meatloaf and lo mein from a laminated slip. But the public doesn't want nuance, they want retribution. They want proof that justice doesn't come with luxury side dishes. And to them, these nice prison meals hit like a gut punch, because it feels like he's still winning, even when he's locked up. But a warm meal can't hide the cold reality of who Diddy used to be and how far he's fallen in 2023. Sean Diddy Combs could call just about anyone in the industry and they'd answer. From Jay-Z to DJ Khaled, from high-powered execs at streaming platforms to superstars he helped launch, Diddy had connections in every corner of culture. But now, phones have gone quiet. In the wake of his arrest and conviction, something far more damning than public criticism has taken over. Silence. Not one close collaborator has issued a statement publicly supporting him. Jay-Z has remained completely silent. No Instagram lives, no subtle lines in a verse, no brotherhood defense. The same goes for DJ Khaled, his longtime studio ally. Even artists under Diddy's umbrella, producers, managers, stylists, have offered nothing but radio static. That distance has more than 1,000 headlines, because these aren't just friends, these are business people. And when business gets risky, allies become liabilities overnight. Meanwhile, CROC, a brand Diddy once helped turn into a luxury staple in rap culture, has quietly started scrubbing his image. While there's no official statement cutting ties, the branding has shifted. No Diddy-fronted campaigns, no mentions on launch events. The face of CROC has disappeared. Then there's Revolt TV, one of the biggest victims of the fallout. Diddy founded the platform to push hip-hop narratives forward and empower black media voices. But in early November 2024, true to crisis protocol, the company announced a major shakeup in leadership without naming Diddy once. Behind the scenes, execs reportedly want nothing to do with the scandal's collateral damage. He may still technically own a share, but operationally, his influence is fading fast. Beyond that, other partnerships have simply paused. Brands, labels, endorsements. No one wants their name printed next to his in a court document, and the fans. It's complicated. Some are doubling down, blaming cancel culture, claiming Diddy's being targeted because of his race or past success. But others, especially women in the industry or survivors of similar abuse, have had enough. Hashtags calling for industry reform gained traction. Behind the scenes, creators say this is just the tip of the iceberg. Still, the lack of formal statements is suspicious. Nobody's rushing to renounce him. But no one's defending him either, because what do you say when the empire builder becomes the fallout? And while the music industry moves on, some are questioning if this is truly the end. If there's one thing Sean Diddy Combs has never lacked, it's confidence. Even with the weight of a federal conviction hanging over his legacy, Diddy's public stance remains defiant. He continues to deny all allegations tied to the charges. From the very beginning, he called the case a smear campaign, claiming that powerful interests were determined to destroy everything he had built. And beyond a few carefully worded legal statements early on, the music mogul has gone completely silent. No interviews, no rants, no apologies. And that silence, it's strategic. Sources close to the situation say his legal team is already preparing an appeal, arguing procedural missteps and overreach in how some evidence was gathered. While appeals in federal court are notoriously difficult, some insiders believe Diddy's deep pockets and legal firepower make anything possible, at least from a courtroom standpoint. But here's the real question. Even if he wins back his freedom, can he ever win back the culture? In an age where every disgraced celebrity seems to find a path back through a podcast, a documentary, even a late-night redemption interview, there's growing debate around whether Diddy could follow that same trajectory. He's done it before. After the 90s shooting trial, after the breakup scandals, after the lawsuits. But this time feels different because the charges weren't just about one bad night or one bad decision. The most damaging thing about Diddy's trial was the pattern it presented. Allegations that spanned years, tied to fame, power, manipulation, and control. And for many, that complexity clashes with the idea of a clean comeback. Still, online, the debate rages on. Some fans believe he's being unfairly targeted, claiming that other powerful figures outside of hip-hop have done far worse and skated through untouched. They point to a double standard. Others say flat out this is overdue, that Diddy's elite status protected him for too long, and now justice is simply correcting the record. Either way, the conversation is no longer about hits, brands, or albums. It's about legacy and whether one of hip-hop's most influential architects still has any say in how his story ends. But even if he walks free early, his industry crown may already be gone for good. It's a story that feels almost too surreal to believe. Sean Diddy Combs wasn't just a music mogul. He defined a generation. He helped shape the sound of the 2000s, reimagined what hip-hop branding looked like, and built an empire that stretched from the studio to luxury fashion, media, and nightlife. For decades, he moved through the world like royalty, untouchable, unstoppable, unchallenged. But now, he'll be ringing in the new year behind bars, not in a penthouse suite, but in a concrete cell at FCI Fort Fix, eating Cornish hens off a plastic tray while guards pace the halls and fluorescent lights buzz overhead. That's the kind of fall that makes people ask, was it all destined to collapse? Were the warning signs there all along? The lawsuits, the whispers, the power plays behind closed doors, or was it one catastrophic twist that finally brought it all crashing down? Either way, the story has shifted forever. The man who once danced in million-dollar videos is now reduced to government-issued clothing and a strict count schedule. The same hands that signed platinum records now cradle a canteen cup. And no matter how loyal the fans, or how strong the legal team, the image of Diddy has changed permanently. So picture it. New Year's Day, 2026, the ball drops. Around the world, people cheer, toast, and post resolutions. And somewhere, in a quiet corner of a New Jersey prison, one of the biggest names in music history sits alone, tray in hand, head possibly down, eating lo mein under lock and key, a man who once ruled the music world, now ruled by the clock, the guards, and a federal meal schedule. Fame fades fast when the truth catches up.